gone! In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
You heard it up top. Sorry. You heard it up top. We're back with a Spooktober episode. That's right. We are kicking things off and getting scary on this podcast because we're talking the original horror movie. That's right. It's The Exorcist with your hosts. Your mother sucks Colin in hell.
Wow.
All right. I guess facilitating that, Mike Zuzu.
And this is The Power of Cobb Compels You.
The power of Cobb compels you.
There's no
Finish
Captain
it. Finish
Cobb.
it, Father Jacob.
Right. No. So, this is the Exorcist podcast you've never heard before. The pod rector's cut, I guess, of this.
Wow.
That's right.
Talking the original.
That's right.
Oftentimes said to be the scariest horror movie of all time. Now, 1974, right? So we're going back before
73, I think.
73 again. I'm sorry,
Yes.
73.
No problem.
But yeah, this predates some of the classics we've talked about, like Texas Chainsaw and even like Black Halloween. That would inspire, or Black Christmas. It would inspire Halloween. Yeah, this is like the OG, and it's kind of, it's different. It's a lot different tonally. It's a lot different structurally, and it definitely had a big impact, I think, on creating a market for scary movies in the mainstream.
Totally.
So it's cool to be talking about it to break into Spooktober.
Yeah, I would
this was your
say
recommendation. So yeah, but I don't
Well,
want to cut
happy
anybody off.
Spooktober, you guys.
Yeah,
No.
Spooktober.
Happy Spooktober. I'm very
Yes.
excited to be talking in particular this film because, of course, we did just lose the director as well, William Friedkin, R.I.P. And, of course, we have a
Guns into the
new
air.
entry in the universe coming up as well. So it's kind of Exorcist time, right, Jacob?
That is right. And like you said, there is a new The Exorcist Believer, directed by David Gordon Green, our favorite Halloween director,
Corey Cunningham.
coming out.
Yeah, I can't believe Corey Cunningham gets possessed
Corey
in this movie.
Cunningham.
Wow.
So good.
That's right.
Yeah.
He's coming. he's going to ruin every.
They got to exercise Michael Myers' spirit from him in the new one, right? That's
Is it Pazuzu? No, it's Michael Myers.
Michael. Oh my God. Jamie Lee Curtis has to reach out to him. Anyway,
But as
jokes
of-
aside, we're getting
Yeah,
into
as of
the
this
Exorcist.
movie- as of,
compels you.
This
shot many
podcast,
times.
the day this podcast comes out, 3 days from today, when you're listening to this, Normies, the new movie will drop. And I also wanted to mention, speaking of William Friedkin, R.I.P. to the man, his last movie, The Caine Mutiny,
Trial of the Caine Mutiny or something like that.
he was working on that in 2023 as he was, before he passed away. And
87 years old, I believe, directing a film.
Yes. And that movie is coming to Paramount Plus, coincidentally, on October 6th, the same day that Exorcist Believer comes out. So strange coincidence there. And I just wanted to
Starring
shout out,
Kiefer Sutherland, your favorite
Kiefer
actor.
Sutherland, as well as Lance Reddick, one of his last roles. So kind of a depressing movie all around. But I wanted to also mention that, and we'll talk about another Lost Boy too.
Well, that's right.
And I wanted to shout out Guillermo del Toro, who, for liability reasons, had to be the co-director of this movie and be on set every day because of William Friedkin's age and his health concerns. For the studio, they're like, we need a co-director. So Guillermo del Toro went to set every day, sat next to William Friedkin just to get this thing made. And so shout out to him.
You know what? That's amazing. That reminds me of when Prairie Home Companion by Robert Altman came out. Paul Thomas Anderson did the same thing. As you're saying, these film companies make you do that to get film insurance. That's bullshit. But to sit down with a master, God, to sit down with Friedkin, I'd trade you, Del Toro. That sounds incredible.
Yeah. It's just the greatest internship. Shout out the title of that film again, Jacob.
It's called,
just so we can
get this right here.
Let the viewers know,
Trial of the Caine Mutiny. Is that truly what it is?
It is called, it's the Caine Mutiny Court Martial.
Oh, okay.
Got it. All right.
Yeah, starring Kiefer Sutherland. And like I said, one of Lance Reddick's last roles. And, Friedkin, he's an interesting director for me. I like him a lot. He's kind of hard to pigeonhole because he's made many different kinds of movies. not really a horror director. Like this is kind of maybe his only horror movie. He mainly does like more thrillers or like like a psychological thriller, heist films,
Procedurals.
procedurals, The French Connection, Sorcerer, Cruising, To Live and Die in LA. I mean,
you just named every one of my favorite films. I've read his biography, The Friedkin Connection. It's one of the most interesting books I've ever read. I won't recommend it to you guys, only to say do the audiobook version instead. He reads his own memoir.
Oh, sure.
And this guy, he like
You've ever
chuckles
heard
to
him talk.
himself as he
He's a great storyteller.
Hey, how are you? Billy Friedkin here. And here's the thing. He's got a nice thick Chicago accent and he just tells it like it is and tells things like slapping Linda Blair and doing some bad things on this set. That, you don't want to give a free pass to, but I'll just say he was such a larger than life character.
Absolutely. He wasn't afraid to speak his mind about other people in the film industry. His story about going to the premiere of Exorcist 2, The Heretic, and walking out within 10 minutes and saying, this is the worst piece of shit I've ever seen. So yeah, really interesting guy, really great character, and RIP to him.
Yeah, rest in peace. And I wonder what he would have said if he saw the Hobbit in 48 FPS.
Well, here, can I say something though? He talks a lot in that memoir. It's kind of what you wouldn't believe from a guy who really pioneered practical effects. And Mike Friedkin, The French Connection, those practical stunt driving. I mean, he's in the car while they're doing things that should have got them all arrested, right? He actually says, though, maybe we'll talk about this later, that if I was making The Exorcist today, I would have used all digital effects. They're so easy.
Yeah, it's kind of like George Lucas.
Yeah, he really does, Jacob. The laziness of that generation, a Lucas in particular. And it's not amazing. Laziness, but just the ability to throw away everything that made you is just really incredible. Yes.
All these great directors of the 70s saying like, oh, if we had CGI, we would have been using it back then. It's like, you're missing like what made your movie great. I don't know how you don't understand that, but
and this is kind of a masterclass of that. And I want to ask you guys, first of all, Colin, this is your recommendation. What's your history with The Exorcist?
I am instead going to start with my family's history with The Exorcist, as I texted both of my parents what their first reactions were to seeing this film.
Oh, cool.
I definitely remember them telling stories as a young person, because I would say, guys, Psycho, kind of the huge film / horror film that changes things, quote unquote, for the world. That's our grandparents' generation. That's the 50s. This film, this was like the biggest events of our parents' lives until Star Wars comes out. So my mom says she was 17. She went with her older sister, Carol. They weren't allowed to go. She snuck her there. It was a drive-in. And as a Catholic, they had gone to a mass on the previous Sunday where the priest told people not to go see the film.
Wow. There was a very
hype machine.
Big reaction from the Catholic Church, and like a lot of people hated this movie when it came out. They thought it was crass, like schlock, basically, which is crazy because it was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Picture. But
insane.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
And my mom had nightmares. She cried. Her parents got her older sister in trouble because she was like, why did you do this? How could you take her? My father also says 17. They're not the same age, so one of them is wrong. I found that to be a very interesting point that they both remembered being 17 seeing this.
Right.
I went with some buddies from high school who were 18. I was only 17. Due to the film's rating, if you were under 18, you had to be accompanied by a guardian. We saw it at the Springdale Cineplex. I remember cops were there checking IDs, but I was not questioned, so we went in. The film was like nothing I had ever seen, terrifying and disturbing.
Wow.
Sure.
I mean, you see all those interviews of people, where they're like, oh, there's like at least 12 people passing out every showing. And like, it was a phenomenon. It was like, there was so much buzz around it being absolutely terrifying.
Yes. Absolutely. And like you're saying, Colin, like the horror genre as we knew it at that time was much different. Like you said, Hitchcock kind of shaped what horror would become, but there was no slashers. That was not a thing. Like
It was like, should we go see William Castle's The Tingler, where your
Yeah.
seats vibrate while a guy on the screen says, "It's the Tingler." You're like,
Right.
okay.
It's a much more boring power than The Shining.
Yes.
But
Yeah. You had The Shining coming out a couple years later,
1980,
but
I believe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another
Yes.
Artur doing horror, but anyway.
But this one, what strikes me about it, rewatching it, is just how much of a slow burn it kind of is compared to what we consider horror movies now. It really takes this time to set up and establish the story, these characters. Like it just takes its time, and not to be like all old head about it, like they don't make them like they used to, but they kind of don't make them like they used to.
No.
Yeah.
What is your history with this film, Jacob?
Not too much of a history. I mean, I watched it for the first time back in college when I was kind of going through all the, the canon of like established, great films. I was like, let me try to fill in my, anything that I'm missing in my knowledge of film. So I was watching a lot of different old movies and stuff, and I watched it in college, and remember liking it a lot, but hadn't really returned to it in a while until, for this podcast. And I've actually watched it twice in the past several weeks, just because I was like, let me watch it again because I just love it so much. Let me really soak in everything, and it's incredible. What a picture! What a picture!
I tell you what a picture! You've never seen anything like it.
That's right. That's cinema to me.
It is. I had never seen this movie. Shocker.
Wow.
So fresh reaction, first viewing yesterday night. I threw it on 2 hours. I was like, damn, all right, we're a real movie, I guess.
Yeah.
And, we'll get into my thoughts, but it's a great piece of cinema, something worth checking out.
Hell fucking yeah.
Yeah, so I'm happy to be here talking about it. I have a secret link. I have a secret shout out at the end of the episode for you. That is my main exposure to the Exorcist storyline. I had seen some of the main bits and like commercials, and it's the scariest thing. And I didn't really get into horror until college, and it just was a blind spot for me. So
totally
I'm glad that we're doing it.
And it kind of, through cultural osmosis, people know, like with like The Godfather or any other really famous movie, like a lot of the famous parts, the famous lines, like the head spinning around, all that kind of stuff. But seeing it, it's an experience
as a narrative too, because it is unconventional. But maybe that's a good place to jump into it then, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, we've kind of hyped it up. We've all seen it recently, some of us more than once, and let's exercise some demons, guys. Let's go get after it. Right after this,
we're back here at Normies Like Us. Sorry again. The Pazuzu keeps coming through because we're talking.
Push it down.
Coming through.
The Pazuzu coming through. On this podcast, as we're talking this incredible film, 1973, directed by William Friedkin, written by William Blatty. It is adapted from his own novel. He kind of was a screenwriter, novelist, makes this film, produces it as well. And it's an absolute fucking hit, nominated for a bazillion Academy Awards.
That's right.
It has a stupendous legacy.
And one of the few horror movies to ever be nominated for Best Picture, for one thing. And, Linda Blair, Best Supporting Actress, Ellen Burstyn, Best Actress, Jason Miller, Best Supporting Actor. So a lot of noms. I think it had 2 wins, screenplay and sound design. So that's kind of interesting.
Won a bunch of Golden Globes.
Yeah, you would think
also,
visual
we
effects,
should shout out.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure. Costuming as well. But the special effects / makeups are done by legendary makeup artist Dick Smith, who we should shout out because he wins a honorary Academy Award truly in 2011 or something like that, so late, but only because in 1973 there was not a makeup Academy Award. That did not come around until 1981.
Okay, that makes sense. I was like, how didn't this win?
How couldn't
makeup?
Some
or
of this
special
is better
effects?
than stuff that.
Well, how could Star Wars not? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that makes sense. Then.
But like you said, William Friedkin directed, William Peter Blatty screenplay. Now they didn't get along very well on set. Those two. And I was reading about
Friedkin's
the making
insane.
of this film. Friedkin is hard to work with. They had kind of had differing ideas on some of it. And now I can go in a little bit, but I did watch the sequel, The Exorcist 2, The Heretic. Not a good movie. And I do want to watch Exorcist 3, which was directed by William Peter Blatty himself, who wrote and directed it based on his sequel novel called Legion.
Wow.
So very interesting. There's a lot of bad sequels made of this movie, but
maybe one coming out now.
Yeah.
Right? And also a whole litany of the exorcism ofs, you know. It created a whole
Yes.
genre.
I mean,
Yes,
yeah,
of course.
and really it's never been done better than the original. So
No.
but I wanted to ask you guys, so are you aware at all of the curse of this movie? Have you heard anything about that ever?
I'm aware of the poltergeist curse, which you were saying up top, Colin. If I could have used computers, I would have. And poltergeist is a clear example of why you shouldn't do that, like all the hard, bad effects. But
yeah,
I'm aware of the poltergeist curse, but not the curse surrounding this. Colin, do you know about it? And
I assume it's like the little ghost child in Three Men and a Baby. No, I don't know.
Yeah, no, there was essentially there was a bunch of difficulties with the production, and it was known to be cursed, as they say, because it went way over budget. There was a bunch of problems. Shooting was delayed for 6 weeks when a bird flew into an electrical circuit, caused a big fire on a bunch of sets. A bunch of people associated with the production died, or their family members died. Like the guy that played Burke Dennings in this movie died like a week after he finished filming while this movie was still in production. A crew member cut off his thumb, and then another crew member lost his toe in 2 different accidents on the set of this movie. And I also wanted to mention the most disturbing part of this all is so in the scene, not to jump ahead too far in the plot, but in the scene where Reagan goes into the doctor, to do some tests, they're doing some CAT scans or whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
So there's a
Before
guy that
we
plays
turn to exorcism. We're like, okay, let's do some doctor stuff.
Yeah. In that scene, there's a guy that plays the technician that's like putting the needle in her and stuff. A guy named Paul Bateson. Now, Paul Bateson was a real radiological technologist that Friedkin just apparently knew somehow. But after this movie, about 6 years after this movie, he would be convicted of murder for killing someone, obviously. And not only that, but he was implicated in a series of serial killings known as the Bag Murders in the 70s, which was a series of unsolved killings of targeting gay men in the S&M and leather community.
Oh, well, of course. Now, so then what does that inspire? He makes the film Cruising.
So that sounds like the premise of William Friedkin's 1980 movie Cruising. It's because he was inspired by this true story of this guy, Paul Bateson, who's in this movie, who might be a serial killer. He went to jail for a long time, got out in 2003, never admitted to being a serial killer, but Friedkin...
And he loves going to The Exorcist. He loves going to screenings, just answering questions from fans. Like, can you imagine?
But Friedkin did say, like, based on his personal conversations with this man, he did believe that he was the bag murder serial killer, and made a movie about it called Cruising, starring Al Pacino. So really fascinating and disturbing. But
he meets police officer Eddie Egan and does French Connection based on Popeye Doyle, but really Eddie Egan. His whole life is meeting maniacs and going like, I could make a movie out of you.
This is something I could film here.
Right. So literally a convicted murderer is in this movie. Several of the people, like I said, died or had family members die. Even Max von Sydow, his brother, died during production of this movie. So really, really a lot of weird stuff happened. And Friedkin himself said, he said, I'm not really a religious person, but I do believe that something weird was going on that set, like something sinister. So very spooky stuff.
That's how I'd sell
Spooktober
tickets to my movie too, but very weird set of coincidences or not. That's a lot of tragic events happening during one production. That is, I never knew that.
Also Ellen Burstyn and Linda Blair both suffered like back injuries during set just from different stunts.
I believe that.
Linda Blair like fractured her spine because of the shaking bed at one point. And I think Ellen Burstyn like had a serious injury when in the scene when she gets like a dresser thrown at her and stuff. Like she got pretty seriously injured and for the rest of the shoot had to use crutches basically. So
if you told me the black eye in this film was real the whole time, I'd be like, yeah, of course, absolutely.
Yeah.
And who was this offered to? I know a little bit. Like, imagine Audrey Hepburn getting hit by a dresser and having to walk around in crutches.
Sure.
I think she was one of the first people they went out to for this role. But
Yeah,
I'm not
there
an
was
expert, but wild.
No, there was a lot of there's a lot of stuff about casting. They were looking at a bunch of different people. For Father Karras, the studio wanted Jack Nicholson or Paul Newman. And actually they hired an actor named Stacy Keach for a while. But
of course.
Then
the father in Titus.
Yes. But then when Friedkin met Jason Miller and he's like, this guy is perfect for this role.
Jason Miller was a playwright. I watched this with William Friedkin's commentary because, again, his voice is so magnetic and he's just such a cult-like figure that I just kind of have to hear him talk about the things that he does. And he talks about seeing Jason Miller's play. He'd never been in a film before, begged him for a screen test. Why would I do that? I've already cast the film. Right. Well, I could do it if you came in 2 days. Oh, I can't come in 2 days. I'm scared to fly. I'll have to take the train. It'll take me a week. A week! We can't. I've already cast somebody, and you want a week? Well, we can't. So I gave him a shot. And you know what? He impressed me so much. I told the executives, we have to cast this nobody who never did anything. And Mike, here's an interesting for you. Jason Miller is the father of a famous actor, Jason Patrick,
Lost Boy.
He is the star of Lost Boys, one of your favorite movies. He's the older brother.
Yeah, Michael. Yeah.
Michael.
Yeah.
They're worms,
Jason
Michael.
Patrick. Real name, I guess, Jason Miller Jr., but goes by Jason Patrick for some reason.
I believe it's his middle name. Here's the thing. Jason Patrick is one of those guys who, if you look up all of his roles, he basically was offered every role Johnny Depp ever had, but kind of turned it down. And you go, what happened there? And he gives a lot of interviews about how the way his father was treated by Hollywood, he never wanted to happen to him. So he was always very wary about becoming a movie star. And if you look up Jason Miller's life after this film, he did not have a very good time. So
he had
kind of
some
became an
problems with
alcoholic.
alcoholism. Yeah, but the reason he wanted this role so bad is he had his own kind of spiritual thing that he was going through. His
struggles
kind of crisis
with faith.
of faith. Yeah, so he's like, this character is me. You don't understand. I need to play this character.
And he's incredible in this.
Yeah,
he really is.
Great.
He's like my favorite. Yeah, I think my favorite part of this movie. Like, he just kills.
Well, the first time I watched it, I kind of just always considered it Max von Sydow's movie, but watching it this time, I was like, no, Father Karras
more of a supporting character.
One of the most interesting characters. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, Marion is not in it that much.
No, not at all.
But when it comes to Chris McNeil, the Ellen Burstyn role, you're correct, Mike. Audrey Hepburn, Anne Bancroft, and Jane Fonda were all considered.
Could see them all.
But they all rejected it. So they're like, okay, what about Shirley MacLaine? She didn't want to do it. Carol Burnett, she didn't want to do it. So eventually they got Ellen Burstyn. And I like Ellen. I mainly know Ellen Burstyn from that movie Requiem for a Dream. You guys ever see that movie?
That one's in my blind spot too. But
Darren plays the old lady who watches the shows and shit. Yeah,
Jared Leto,
performance.
Jennifer Connelly. Good movie. Anyways, but yeah, and she'll be in this new one, Exorcist Believer, returning as sort of the Jamie Lee Curtis, legacy role. So interesting.
Right. That is interesting, but I think the whole cast is really good in this. I could see any of those other people in it, but man, there's something about this movie.
And just to mention also Max von Sydow, of course, the Swedish actor who, I don't know how much you guys know about this guy. Very interesting, very long career, only died a few years ago in 2020 at the age of 90. But his first role was in 1949 and his last role was in 2018. So
Jesus Christ.
Very long career. Of course, he was in Ingmar Bergman's The Seventh Seal, kind of his big crossover hit, playing chess with death, and then went on to be
inspiring Bill and Ted. Yeah, I've seen that.
Yes,
well,
exactly.
Of course, Mike. We're all film school guys. I have to imagine that really was our exposure to him was kind of those later in life roles. But honestly, we were kind of texting about this. But I was saying to you guys that upon watching this, you forget that he was such a young man at the time, and it really is prosthetics to make him such an older priest because he's just been someone in our lives who's always been old, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
an old
guy.
man.
He's Star Wars guy, yeah.
decades. He's been the old guy, kind of journeyman, kind of shows up in a lot of things. Two of his last roles were, of course, The Force Awakens and Game of Thrones, where he played the three-eyed raven.
Which do you think Ingmar Bergman would understand more if you explained it to him, Jacob? Game of Thrones or Star Wars?
So somehow Palpatine returns. Okay.
So I played the three-eyed raven.
Yeah.
I do not like this. No.
But yeah, he of course was known for his work with Ingmar Bergman. He starred in like 7 of his movies, then kind of crossed over, did some English language, of course, in Hollywood. This one being one of his first big American movies. He only started doing English language in like the mid-60s. So there you go.
Huh.
Yeah.
It is crazy how good these effects look. Colin, you were texting. Like, he just looked like he did the makeup in Star Wars. Like,
and he's in his mid-40s.
Guy in this. I couldn't.
Yeah. He's in his mid-40s at this point, and definitely the makeup makes him look 20, 30 years older, which is insane.
It makes you jump on Google. You're like, well, this cannot line up correctly. I know what this guy looks like when he was this old, and this is not right.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I was like, there's no way he could be this old in 1973 and make it to 2020. Like, makes no sense.
No.
That's,
But I guess, so, and the Warner Brothers, the studio, wanted to cast Marlon Brando in this role. So it's funny, Colin, we were talking off pod about, of course, Scary Movie 2, James Woods kind of coming in and playing the comedic version of this role. But apparently they were going to have Marlon Brando do that. So it's just funny because Marlon Brando was going to play this role in Scary Movie when originally they wanted him to play this role in this movie.
Right.
Fully cast. I told you a little earlier before we got on pod. Fully cast. He comes to set with an oxygen tank, can barely walk, and they were like, "Well, no, you can't do this." And then he died like a month later. Mike.
Oh man, part of the curse, perhaps.
Hey, could be.
Wild.
But I guess William Friedkin saw a picture of the guy that the real person that Father Lancaster Marin is based on. And he was like, this guy. And then he saw a picture of Max von Sydow, and he's like, this guy looks exactly like this guy. We need to cast him. Yeah.
So I said, let's do it.
But great casting, because I think he's he's also great in this movie.
No.
You only get one of those for this movie. No, the casting is incredible. I think everyone in this movie is incredible. Yes. And we've yet to mention sort of the star of the show, Linda Blair.
That's right. Linda Blair. A non-actor at the time. This was like, I believe, her film debut. Obviously, they were auditioning a bunch of child actors and stuff, and then she just had kind of the best chemistry with Ellen Burstyn, her mother.
Ellen Burstyn interviewed her. They improvised. Linda Blair came from an equestrian background. She would later, just after this filming, go back to high school, go back to her school where she was a straight A student. She rode horses. She would do that like all over the country, I guess, in competition. Wow, nice. And we said nominated for an Academy Award. I mean, it's kind of a one-of-a-kind performance that sets the tone for all possession performances going forward.
Yeah. And of course, at times, they did use a stunt double for certain scenes. Also, Mercedes McCambridge, a very famous radio actress of the 40s and 50s, did the Pazuzu voice at times. So it's not always her doing the voice and stuff, but she did a great job for like what she was asked to do, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of physicality here, even with the stunt people being included. The just kind of range to expect someone whose first movie. There's some crazy stuff in here. So,
and I have to say,
it wouldn't work. The movie doesn't work if Reagan doesn't work. So
no, they really got a great performance out of her, because having seen The Exorcist 2, which she's in as an older 16-year-old Reagan, she's not very good in that movie. Like, she's really like, some child actors, they grow up and they're just not, they don't quite make it, So somehow they got a great performance out of her in this movie.
You just got to slap them around a little bit,
Yeah, well, it's the Kubrick way. Yeah.
Joke.
Yeah, and again,
joke.
That's just two smaller, quicker anecdotes. The one to reference that is, he would literally say, to get the performance out of Linda Blair, William Friedkin, "Do you love me? Yes. Do you trust me? Yes." And slap her in the face as hard as he could and she would burst into tears, and he would say action, and she would do like all the crazy stuff.
Shades
not
of
good.
Kubrick
Crazy
on The
shit.
Shining.
Yes,
type of stuff.
and
yeah.
he's such a huge acolyte of Orson Welles that you have to imagine too that just the level of perfection he's going for. It's all plotted out. You know, he just keeps saying that. If you look at his shot composition, it truly is too. But the other maniac behavior, loaded gun, he would carry on set and fire at random times to startle people before he would hit action. And that,
amazing.
I think, really is what contributed to Jason Miller kind of becoming a little unhinged.
Oh, sure.
And there's something about this era.
It's worth it for the performance.
That's what was the thought back then. Is like these are tours. They get to do whatever they want, carte blanche, and a lot of that would be considered a.
There's a lot of
right
reassessing of.
Like, it used to be like joining a play or a movie or a TV show was like joining the army. Whatever happens to you, it's like you survived it.
Again, Kubrick on The Shining, traumatizing. What's her name, and just
Shelley Duvall.
Shelley Duvall, and just doing whatever he could to get the best performance, which is kind of how it was done in those days. And you know, people like Hitchcock and Orson Welles, they didn't have a lot of respect for actors. They just Hitchcock would say, actors are cattle. Like I tell them where to stand and what to do, and like I control the picture. So that was
I just need the most beautiful
bomb under the table, all kinds of shit. This has been going on. But not to endorse it, but you know, the picture is what they captured is what they captured. The methods are the methods, but we're just going to talk about what the viewer experiences. But some wild stuff going on. Just know that going into this.
Maybe not always the best working conditions, but you know, different times.
Let's jump into it. Spoilers, obviously. We're going to be talking the whole 1973 film, The Exorcist. What up? But on top of that, before we really go through like knife by knife by knife, like beat by beat by beat, Mike, first reactions. What did you think about seeing this film? Now, like Jacob said up top, kind of a slow film. How does it play to a modern man seeing it for the first time?
Honestly, it reminds me of something we covered last year because I had not seen that film either, and that's Silence of the Lambs. Like that's kind of slower, and it's like psychological, you know, and it's not really. This has more kind of scary elements, horrific elements in it. You know, Shining is a lot more psychological, but it has a similar tone where we're following this main character who kind of doesn't have all the information. And I'm talking about Damien, you know, Demi. Whatever, it's like it kind of feels when he's just running, and maybe it's just people jogging in sweatsuits that gets me thinking that. But I thought this was really good, but it is.
It's me, Mama. It's Demi.
Yeah, I would
absolutely, and I wonder, you know, how modern audiences who had never seen it would react to this kind of movie, because it is a slower burn, but there's just so much going on kind of underneath the surface, and you really get invested in these characters, right?
I would call it methodical. I think we need to replace slow with methodical with some of these older films that were just made with a different intent, a different type of pacing in mind, and a different audience in mind. So
I like that,
and I need to watch it again. I think because there's so much going on.
Absolutely, that's why I did watch it twice in like the last couple of weeks. I was like, I really want to soak in everything, and I like how kind of slow and methodical it is. I like how the slow build of Reagan kind of changing over time, and you don't quite know, like they kind of lean into like, is it like a sign? Is it some kind of medical condition? Is it religion? For like a long time, like until like maybe the last half hour of the movie, like you know, Damien's still not convinced. We should do
some exercising in this film called The Exorcist.
Yeah. And like Damien's such an interesting character because he's a psychiatrist and also a priest. So he's got like the scientific side and the spiritual side. He's kind of trying to reconcile those. And then he's got the guilt of his mother dying and all this stuff. So he's a very complicated character.
Dr. Harris, counselor to fellow Jesuit priest. That is a fascinating thing to point out, Jacob.
Yeah.
He's probably my favorite character in this. There's just so much going on. And the way he has to interact with the changing situations and stuff. And, you know, similar with the mother. Like there's horror being told from many angles, and many characters are experiencing different types of horror. And I think that's pretty clever how they do that.
And as a priest, you would expect, like in these kind of movies, like the priest characters, like the exorcism specialist, like he's going to come in, and that's kind of what Father Merrin is, I guess. But he's really skeptical for most of the movie. He's like, I'm more of a psychiatrist, you know? Yeah, like there must be some kind of psychological reasoning behind this. He doesn't really believe in demon possession until the end. So
yeah. yeah, no, there's a lot of twists and turns to get there, but I really thoroughly enjoyed it. So I guess without further ado, we'll just jump into it. We're gonna go beat by beat, Pazuzu by Pazuzu, right after this.
We're back here on Normies Like Us. We need an old priest and we need a young priest because we're talking The Exorcist. Let's dive in. We start in Afghanistan.
We start in an Indiana Jones movie.
Yes. That's a great way to put it. We meet
getting Indiana Jones vibes.
who is also an archaeologist, which is, again, well, I guess, is that what Sean Connery is in The Last Crusade? He seems very priesty or religious.
Yeah, I think he's kind of like a professor or something.
The Holy Grail, the cup of Christ.
That's true.
Yeah.
You know, it's a religious tie.
Do you think?
But yeah, he's in Iraq, I believe. Max von
Yes, I apologize. He's in Iraq. Friedkin points out on the commentary that this was at the time where Saddam Hussein was not in power, but his party was in power. America was obviously not at peace with the Iraqi people or had any sort of agreement to participate in any filming or anything. So he had to go over there with British military kind of helping him, and basically with just the mercy of the Iraqi government. And they agreed to it and let him film on the condition that he taught local Iraqis how to make movies, and specifically how to make film blood, which he says, I did, and I loved showing them.
Wow.
So what do you think that is?
I don't know. But I mean, they get some pretty cool locations here. Like it's all shot on location in Iraq, and I mean, there's a lot of extras and stuff that I assume were just people that he found, and
the people in the insane asylum are just people who are in the insane asylum, unfortunately. Oh, sure. So it's him really just going like, yeah, show me some crazy.
Well, does he? Sorry, William Friedkin. Does he have like a documentary background? I thought I heard something like that, or at least a documentary style. Like
this is real. Particularly, he is going for a very documentarian style. Yeah, he's really he does a lot of theatrical. It's a lot of plays, and I think that's what really attracts him to finding cast members, like the fact that Jason Miller was a playwright and a play actor specifically.
Yeah, gotcha. And this is still pretty early on in his film career. I mean, he made French Connection 71 a couple years before this. He made The Boys in the Band, which is a drama about gay men. Once again,
the AIDS crisis.
Yeah, the AIDS crisis. So yeah, he did a lot of different things, but this is before kind of some of his later pictures, obviously.
You know what? I'll make a movie about the devil book. That sounds good. Let's do that.
I can see the instinct though to be like, if we just point the camera over there, it'll look real because it is. Like you know what I mean? Yeah, I can see that process.
But it's all very well filmed.
It's very effective opening, I think. It's a lot of evocative imagery.
What is his name? Father Marin?
Father Lancaster Marin.
Father Lancaster Marin. In his archaeology world, he's on site, he's digging up some religious artifacts. He has a premonition when he finds something in particular of an evil spirit that we will go on to realize is Pazuzu. Is he ever named in this film?
I don't believe in this movie. In the sequel, they go a lot into the lore of Pazuzu, and again, not very good, kind of a terrible sequel that kind of ruins this movie. But but it is based on an Assyrian demon, I believe, of lore. So it's
Prince
based
of
on
Hell.
Yes.
Got it. Yeah, not named, I think, and it's sometimes we'll get there. But this entity is fascinating to talk about. But meanwhile, we're just in the desert.
And it's not just what's interesting too is it's not the devil. Like I feel like a lot of exorcism movies are specifically about Satan, and that's this demon Pazuzu is not Satan, right? So that's kind of interesting.
Yes, Captain Howdy.
Captain Howdy.
He is Captain Howdy.
right. To his friends. Where do we go after this intro? We find the artifact.
We go to the Iraqi tea house.
Statue.
He's kind of just having a bad time, and then we really just cut away and then kind of go into some cross cutting. So we go to Georgetown, in the middle of filming. We met Chris McNeil, who's a very famous actress, I guess, who's doing some sort of like you can't fight the system or power movie, about young people. But wow, it's revealed to be a film. She's a successful young actress who's getting divorced or is divorced and is living with her young daughter Reagan in this home that they've just purchased to to film around.
Yes.
Right. The father's not present in this movie at all. We kind of hear talks about him, but they're living there, and then they have a little bit of help. There's like a maid and a butler kind of vibe because she's got some money.
She's a pretty well-off actress. I believe the father is in Europe at this time, they say, so he's kind of out of the picture. We see Reagan's birthday. He's supposed to call on Reagan's birthday, and he doesn't call until like late at night and that kind of thing. So yeah, she's trying to be a good mom to Reagan while also doing her job as an actress. And that's where we start this movie off at.
Yeah. And we cross-cut over to, and Mike, I gotta say, first time I watched this film, I did not remember how much Father Karras really was like the co-lead of this film. But we cut over to Father Karras, and we see the setup to his life in the life of a Jesuit priest who is having some bad feelings. He's getting on the subway. He sees a homeless person who's like, "Can you spare some change?" He almost sees a flash of a demonic face, but really it's not. It's not cutting like it is for the other priest. Instead, he's just seeing like the horrors of humanity. He's losing his faith in God because he does not like the men and women he sees around him.
Yeah.
Yes. And
as suffering, disenfranchised.
Yeah. As a priest who's also a psychiatrist, his job is to like psychoanalyze other priests and like, so yeah, he's kind of having a crisis of faith where he's like, he doesn't really know if this is the right job for him. Like he kind of asks he kind of gets guidance from another priest. Yeah. He's like, maybe I should just like not be a priest. I don't know if my heart's in it anymore and stuff. So
he's working at Georgetown University, where we're going to learn he has been seen before by Chris MacNeil. But then of course we cut to Chris MacNeil. She's having a luxurious wrap party for the bit of this little movie that we saw filming. And there is another priest there who's kind of like the fun, easygoing priest. And he's like playing the piano for all of them as they like sing songs and do this stuff. And she says, "By the way, do you know this priest I see sometimes on campus?"
That's right. And this guy we see, he's a friend of Father Karras. They have some scenes together, especially when it gets into
this guy.
Yeah. Also a weird scene at that party
every night, and they love it.
Yeah. A weird scene at that party where that guy is like drunk and starts calling that other guy a Nazi.
The director.
Yeah.
Starts calling the butler a Nazi. You're just a fascist Nazi. Making
like a
huge scene.
Guy.
He gets so wasted. Yeah.
But
I love all the details of this.
Like, it's so weird. This
guy. He just wants to make the guy maybe laugh or react or something, but he pushes it so far, Mike. It's crazy.
And then he just goes back to the party like, "Oh, that was fun." It's such a weird. I guess that's how
Hollywood. Then he gets pushed out a window.
Oh yeah.
And that's Burke Dennings, who that actor died a week after filming his role in this movie.
Wow. So you know what? Now that you pointed out, that makes sense. This is the performance of a guy who's going to die in a week.
Right. But I love all the little details of this. Like they just do a really good job of characterizing like this place and this time and like these characters, and just sets up this story really well.
Alive.
Yeah.
I love when you see Karras and it's like, you think priests are, pretty clean living, healthy, don't desecrate the temple of God, which is your body. He's smoking cigs, drinking beers, and he's like,
he loves to drink.
I don't know if I want to do this. But then at the same time, he does training. He's like boxing and running. Like there's a push and pull of the healthy and bad habits. Yeah. Light and dark.
We get the pan of in his teeny tiny apartment of like, there's my Greek mama, there's me as a little boy, and then of course all the photos of me being like a semi-pro boxer, and you're like, oh okay, and then the cut to the gym of him hitting the heavy bag of like, Father Karras, this movie. I fucking love this character. He's so fucking great.
So great.
He could beat you down. He's giving that bag everything he's got too.
Yes.
Like, you could tell the frustration, like the turmoil in him.
He's going through so much. Is this how the comic book
Preacher came about? Like a fucking hard-smoking priest who's just like beating shit up.
Constantine.
Like, this is great. Yes.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, and Jason Miller does a great job. Like there's just so much going on with this character. And I love the scenes with the police detective where they kind of have a rapport. One thing I will say is like the original cut of this was like 12 minutes longer. The studio wanted to cut like 20 minutes. Blatty was like, no way. Like I want to fight for this picture how it is. Friedkin ended up cutting, I think, 12 minutes out, including some of the scenes that Blatty was like, these are some of the best scenes, including some more scenes with him and the detective kind of establishing their relationship more, which is kind of unfortunate. I think, it could have used more of the police detective, I think.
Now, Can I ask, what versions did you guys watch? Because I think I watched the director's cut. The DVD I own is called The Cut You've Never Seen. That is what I hit play on. It said The Cut You Have Never Seen on the title screen.
Wow. So you might have some of those extra scenes. I just
think
watched
that
what's
is
on
the extended cut. Yeah,
Yeah.
like there's a conversation on the stairs with Karis and the other father that was not in my version. So I watched whatever the theatrical or original cut was.
Yeah, they cut one of the original last scenes of the movie is that the other father who gives Karis his last rites at the end of the movie talking to the detective, and they agree to like go to a movie together, and they're kind of establishing a friendship too. So
yes, and then Reagan sees them. I saw the alternate ending.
Okay, yeah, that was not I just watched the cut that's available on Max, which is probably just the theatrical cut.
Same.
But I would love to see that longer cut. Yeah.
No, I would too. I like these characters so much. Like when I rewatch this, that's probably a good way to do it. You know,
sometimes I don't lean towards director's cuts. I'll be honest with you guys. Sometimes I think you're kind of just messing with a good thing. I don't know.
But if I could just see more of these actors interacting on film, I'll tolerate it this time.
I would say specifically like the police detective. I like him, but I feel like he needs more scenes because it kind of feels like he disappears from the movie for a while.
Yeah.
And like I love the scene where he goes and talks to Father Karras, and he's kind of trying to get him to like admit stuff, and like they kind of have a back and forth, and I think that's like really good stuff. He's like,
can't break.
You look like a boxer, you know.
Yeah. And then he's like, oh, I can't break whatever would be attorney-client privilege for a priest and his patients.
Priest-client privilege. Yeah.
Because
if you're in confession, like that's between you and your priest, I guess. So.
And then
in God. And this other guy named God.
Salminio.
But he's like, I wouldn't tell on them if they did a crime, but I would try to convince them to turn themselves in. He's kind of showing where his morality lies, and whatever. Yeah. So we're learning more about him.
Yeah. Of course, we had the famous Exorcist steps in this movie. A famous filming location, similar to the Joker steps, but I for some reason if you remember that movie, The Joker, when he dances on the steps. I thought when I watched that movie that those were the same steps. It's actually different steps, but they just look very similar. But for some reason in my mind, that was the same location.
This is
that's
narrow.
true.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, what would you prefer to visit? The New York Joker steps, the Georgetown Exorcist steps, or
the Rocky Philadelphia
Philly steps? Yeah.
Sure.
I still lean Rocky Philly steps because there's more movies associated with those.
Yes, I would run up and do the Rocky pose.
I want to do that.
Oh, you don't want to fall down the Exorcist steps and break your neck?
To my death.
Well, not
have a priest go like,
his head was
it's okay.
all the way around.
It's okay. Do last confession. It's okay.
Yeah.
Jeez, yeah.
No.
No, I'm good. But that's probably second on the list. I wouldn't mind walking by there, checking those out. Joker
dance
steps
with Joaquin Phoenix.
You'd go to the Joker steps, Mike.
You'd
do the dance.
Yeah, Arthur. But iconic steps.
The Exorcist.
There we go. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, so of course we're at this party and they're all singing, having a good time, playing the piano. All of a sudden, young Reagan shows up in her nightgown. Says, "You're gonna die up there."
She says to an astronaut who is at the party, explaining that he's going to space really soon. That Reagan looks at him and says, "You're going to die up there." Which if I was that guy, I'd be like, "What the fuck did you just say to me?"
Yeah, and then pees herself basically, and everyone is just like,
on the floor. It's what the hell?
Queen, piss queen. She just lets it go, man. Right. It is great, and everybody is like, "This is horrifying."
Yeah,
it's all just imagine my 18-year-old parents watching this.
Sheesh. Yeah.
Yeah. But again, this is a slow burn, so this is the first sign of something's wrong, but it's pretty early on in the movie, but then a lot of stuff kind of slowly happens. It's
going to build, but we did learn that there was a Ouija board located. Reagan was playing with it. There's a Captain Howdy figure, so there has been established a connection potentially with the other side, although not explicitly. It's kind of all hinted at, and then this is the first weird thing that she's done.
Yeah, I think in that Ouija board scene, like there's a quick shot of it like moving by itself, right, and then it cuts away, just like really quick. It's almost so quick that you wouldn't even notice it. But she's like, "Yeah, my friend Captain Howdy," and her mom's like, "Who's Captain Howdy?" He's like, "He's my friend,
But he doesn't want to talk to you.
She's also saying,
yeah.
She's also saying how hard it's been to sleep because of all the noise, and that's hinting at the bed stuff is already affecting her.
Oh yeah, one of the first scenes also with Chris McNeil is she she thinks there's rats in the attic because she keeps hearing these noises, and her housekeeper's like, no, there's no rats. Like I put like there's no rats. She's like, no, there's definitely something's making noise. So that's kind of one of our first signs as well.
That's right. So
a lot of little details. Yeah.
Such a tight screenplay. I love it
Right.
so much.
So dense. Yeah. So yeah, well, she apologizes. Oh, she's not feeling well, but it's all these elites, so it's really wild, you know, that they're exposed to this kind of crazy event.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's freaking out, but things are happening.
Yeah, and then let's see, where do we go from there?
I've only seen it once.
She's getting sicker and sicker. So Ellen Burstyn's like, we got to get you checked out. Meanwhile,
That's
Father
right.
Karras, we're seeing more of his descent. In particular, his Greek immigrant mother, who lives alone, is getting sicker and sicker and sicker.
Mm-hmm.
And he's doing sweet things like putting her to bed, turning the radio over to Greek music, and like trying to let her like live. But like time is moving pretty quick in this movie. We don't realize it, but we're kind of getting these big jumps forward where she is so sick she actually has to be infirmed.
Well, that's the thing. So he visits her. He's like, we need to put you like in a place where like people can care for you and stuff. She's like, no, I don't want to go no place. I live here. So she's kind of refusing.
God, take care of me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually he does like get her in a home, but then it kind of it's not explicitly shown, but she dies pretty much right at like a little bit after that. So the next scene we see with Father Karras, she's already dead, and he's feeling guilt over the way he kind of treated her at the end of her life, I guess. Just
Mm-hmm.
you know, a son's guilt of like, I wish I could do more for my
guilt.
You know,
what could I have done?
You weren't there for her. You let her die. Blah 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 blah.
You're right. Which we'll get there, but we also now we're getting into, okay, we should probably start talking to some psychiatrists or go look at some medical help at the time.
A barrage of tests. These doctors think she has some kind of lesion in her brain that's causing these issues, but they can't find it with the imaging. They're like, seems to be perfectly normal. Like we can't find anything wrong. They're doing all these tests.
And shout out, you said you shouted out the serial killer, Jacob.
The serial killer.
Know that shot.
But
when she is getting the dye inserted into her carotid artery, that's going to show up, you know, the imaging to find the lesion in her brain.
Mm-hmm.
It's this incredible medical sequence. The special effect that Dick Smith pulls off, yes, the blood as the syringe is being inserted. Linda Blair is doing this performance where you can hear her moaning. Friedkin calls it the scariest scene in the film. He said everybody who watched the movie comes up to me and says that is their least favorite part, because obviously medical stuff makes people squirm.
Yes.
But up to that point, that procedure had never been that intricately shown before. And especially the brain surgery stuff that happens in this film. That had never been on screen before. I mean, it is harrowing how realistic it looks.
And the scene where she gets the needle in the neck and blood comes out and everything. It is that guy that's needling her that is the alleged serial killer.
Telling us this.
And now,
I don't want to
the
know
Iraq,
the cruising guy.
Well, the newly formed Iraq Film Commission has the same quality blood now too.
Right.
You know, in their hands at this moment in time.
Mike, do you think they were like faking stuff? Do you think that was to like kill Saddam and be like, he's dead, but really he's out there?
We need theatrics.
I don't know.
Could be.
That might be a tinfoil, but I do like that we have the same formula now because it looks great in this movie. But
it does.
As you said, this medical stuff is some of like the scariest shit to me in this movie. Like there's an electroshock thing later, and it's like
and there's all these
medical science it's so hard to watch, and then you see the horror of the mother having her daughter experience this stuff. So that's what I mean, where there's a lot of angles that they're showing what horror can be. One is what Reagan's experiencing, the mother just having to witness this and get no answers.
Yes, and then she's kind of the mother's like slowly coming undone because all these experts can't figure out what's wrong with her.
Yeah,
they want to like put her under observation, and she's like, "There's something wrong with my daughter, or my daughter."
But and at this point, it is not just cursing, acting strange. Ellen Burstyn is brought into the fact that the bed is shaking, her daughter is levitating, people are screaming out,
furniture is moving.
When you're saying like the horror of talking to these doctors and observing these things, the fact that a mother, because she is playing it like she's just so horrified and almost like, look, I know what I'm going to say is crazy, but I am telling you the bed was levitating. It's like, I understand you're running these tests on her, but like something needs to be done. And the way that they treat her is like, well, you're just an idiot woman.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're
that's
gaslighting
exactly
like,
what it is.
It's psychological. It's like, no, her fucking bed was shaking. Like, that's not psychological.
We have multiple eyewitnesses.
She's not having a seizure.
Yeah. And they try to say, we know how like a mother, when her child's in danger, has super strength and can lift a car or whatever. It's kind of like that. It's like, no, you don't understand. Like, that's not what it is.
Yeah.
So,
and that's some of the worst stuff to see, that this character just slowly, like I said, coming undone. It's nobody believes her, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want answers when someone you love is sick, and it's fucking scary to think that there might not be an answer. That's terrifying.
And you never feel like you're getting proper treatment, ever. It is such a real existential horror that we all will inevitably or have to face. It sucks. It fucking sucks, guys.
Sure.
Yeah, and I don't want to go out of sequence, so let me know, but there's the conversation with Karas when he's like, dog, it's psychological. We know about mental health now. Like, whoever fucking told you about exorcism.
It's we
don't do that. That's not real.
Yeah, it's a very modern take especially for 1973, where they're like, this priest, you think he would be like all for exorcism, but he's like trying to find every reason before exorcism, like to rule everything out, because he's like, there's like, I don't believe in literal demons possessing people.
But that's one of the best scenes, when she breaks down. I'm talking to all these people and they're telling me, no, you're going to send me back to those same people. I'm like, damn, this movie is nuts. So, great stuff here.
He keeps saying, then just let me talk to her. And he really rationalizes it as, I've never done an exorcist. I don't know any priests who have ever done an exorcist. I'm losing my faith in God. Let's just talk about this and think about the mind. And it does set up this meeting between him and Reagan, where we get the trick played.
Yes.
He does some experiments, and he specifically sprinkles water on her that he says is holy water. We get Reagan moaning and reacting negatively to this, and he comes out and tells Ellen Burstyn that he told her it was holy water when in fact it was tap water.
Right.
This is psychosomatic.
And
Ellen Burstyn's devastated.
Yeah, and I love this because it's just adding more skepticism, where it's like, okay, so why, this demon, why would it react to this holy water that's not really holy water? But maybe the demon, works in ways that we can't understand. So it by telling it it's holy water, that's what makes it like.
Or it's just clever enough to give the priest what he wants to see. Like, it will lie to you, it will trick you, it will make you, believe things. Right.
Yeah, it's referencing his dead mother, and he's like, would Reagan have any knowledge of my mother? And her mom's like, no, of course not. Yep. So like he's second guessing himself now, because he's like, well, how does it know about my mother? But it can't tell my mother's maiden name when I asked it. So he's really trying to get to the bottom of this. But I like how
it's being duplicitous on purpose too. Like, there's an insidious nature to this thing. That I need to watch the movie again for the layers.
And I want to comment on what Jacob said about, maybe it's just because it was told that it's holy water. What I love about like vampires and possessions is playing on this currency of faith, where it's always like, well, you held up the cross, but like you didn't really believe it, or like you were saying the prayers, but like you didn't feel it in your heart or whatever, which is such, again, a thing that I think no matter where you are in your faith or spiritual journey, something we can all kind of relate to. And cinematically and thematically and in storytelling means, it is just so fun and cool to set those stakes up and have that roller coaster ride of when the person does start to say, almost like a magic spell, reading a verse of the Bible, and it starts to work. And you as an audience are like, fuck, they do believe. When you, just buying into watching a story, you believe right away because you bought a movie called The Exorcist, and you're like, well, shit, there's going to be an exorcism in this movie.
Right.
Pretty late, but you start to believe as an audience, like,
yes,
it just
you do.
In the narrative, you're like, damn, it's working. Let's keep believing.
But I like
Karas,
but I like how all the red herrings of like, she opens a drawer and he's like, did you do that? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, do it again, and it can't do it again. So it's like
time.
Giving you the doubt.
Not now.
And then it's like,
what
speaking
Pazuzu,
Latin.
the laziest devil. No, I can't. I can do it once. Stop. Don't ask me again.
But it's almost kind of like playing with Father Karras, where it's like, I'm going to make this guy think, he's not going to know what to think because I'm going to just mess with him,
That's what I mean. That's the most fascinating part of the way we build to like, all right, we're doing the exorcism. It's just how much it's fucking with him. I mean, like speaking in tongues, and then he has to do the recording.
Pretending to be his mother, which is just driving him insane and stuff.
With her voice. Using his mother's voice. So we're starting to get speaking in tongues out of Reagan. Yeah.
Demi.
It's and he has a dream about his mother, which is a great dream sequence where he sees her like in the subway and he's like trying to reach out to her but can't reach her and stuff. So,
now, and it does recur, Jacob, that the ghoul figure is the same that the premonition of Leland. Say his name again one more time. What is his name?
Lancaster Marin.
Father Marin. Lancaster Marin. Thank you. How could I possibly keep forgetting
Lancaster
that
name?
Marina Now,
sorry,
now, are we supposed to believe that ghoul is that Pazuzu?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay.
How it got
I'm not
from
very scared of
Iraq
to. He looks like he'd be fighting Adam West Batman.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's the Phantom.
Yes,
it's a Phantom villain.
It's not clear how it gets from Iraq to inside of Reagan or how it comes to possess Reagan.
No, we never get an answer on that. And I really like the film for that. Now, William Blatty was kind of upset about that because the book, Jacob, is kind of a whodunit and a mystery of how did this happen. I would imagine those elements are woven in these later sequels.
Yeah.
Because we don't even get an answer of who puts the gold cross underneath Reagan's bed.
No,
the housekeeper, I guess.
And then there's if you remember the scenes of the desiccated cross in the church and stuff, which is just barely mentioned in this, but is a bigger part of the books.
Like the bloody horns. Yeah.
So there's a lot more details in the books that they did have to cut out for time and pacing and stuff. But like the desecration of these churches and stuff is a bigger part of the books and a bigger part of the whole mystery of it all.
You're right.
I just don't think it needs to be a mystery. I don't know.
No, but they do set up what hints at there's something larger here because of the desecration, and they're like, oh, there's this murder where a guy's head was turned around on the stairs. The stairs wouldn't do that, so what the hell?
Yeah,
that's like
his
a cult
head was
thing, right?
Completely backwards.
Yeah, so they kind of.
I do like the mystery of, is it psychological? Is it science? Or is
that's what it needs.
Truly,
and they're constantly pulling you in both directions. Like one scene will be like, oh no, this is bullshit, and then it's like, well, now she's flying, so
And I think finally the thing that convinces Karras is that she starts speaking in tongues, basically, and he records this and then plays it back later, and he realizes it's backwards, but it's English and it's backwards. So he plays it, and it's calling Father Marin by name. It has experience with Father Marin back in Iraq, so it's like, fear the priest Marin, right? So. Good stuff.
It sounds like there's almost multiple voices at times. Like maybe more than one entity coming in and out.
Very cool effect. I mean, everything. Is very real quick.
Spooky. I'm thinking about my parents having nightmares. Then I'm thinking about me sitting in the audience of Hereditary and a little girl's head getting knocked off. It's like, it's so different now.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we passed it by point, but there's the scene where Reagan's rocking forward and back.
Oh yes,
that's the crowd with that where she's just leaning, falling up and down, and I think she hurt her back in that scene because they were like, "Be aggressive," but the visual is fucking crazy.
It is,
and you just feel terrible because it's like this is just a kid, and all this bad shit's happening to him. That's another angle of the horror. It's like this is just a kid; they don't deserve any of this. So that's like the other side.
It's worse than a zombie, Mike. You kill a zombie because your friend is gone. You don't kill the possessed. They're still in there.
Trying to exorcise the demon.
She masturbates with a crucifix. Jesus Christ.
Pretty
it's
intense.
Uncomfortable, but it's fucking horrific because it's like the loss of innocence, right? It's fucking nuts what this movie was willing to do, especially
and that's why 73. Of course the Catholic Church would say this movie is blasphemous and all this stuff, but really it's almost, it is a very pro-religion movie almost, where it's like saying it's like a pro-God movie because they're saying
at least,
pro-faith.
Friedkin was a Jew for Jesus. He was truly a reformed Jewish man who believed in the power of Christ, and he said specifically he is shooting a Jesuit priest mostly rising. When you first see him from the subway, he's walking up the steps. He's walking up the famous stairs. He's going up to meet Regan.
Gosh.
And he says at the end, when he regains his faith, he is rising when he falls, if you take into the fact that his soul is rising. So it is, in my opinion, a very pro-spirituality and faith movie. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Again, it's just...
I'm disappointed that
devil is in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like they don't have the... they can't... they don't have the nuance, the Catholic Church, to be like, okay, this is actually a pro-faith movie. Like, we should support it. But then Friedkin, I think, also said, like, the best thing that could happen to us is the Catholic Church, like, calling this movie out because it's going to get more people to go see it. So,
honestly,
but you have to be as unsubtle, as Passion of the Christ for religious leaders to be like, yes, go see that film.
Yeah.
Right.
That's dumb.
Yeah.
Really, just even with the struggle of Karis and him finding that at the end, it's like it's very explicit. Like, if you really think about it for 2 seconds, but
yeah, they couldn't see it. But
nope.
I was thinking, your parents going to see this when they're teens and stuff. Like,
jeez,
if I saw this as a kid or as a preteen, I would be traumatized. I was thinking, my experience. This is not a horror movie, but when I saw Titanic in theaters, I was pretty young. And I had nightmares because of it was very traumatizing to me to watch these people like dying and stuff.
Man.
And Leo's friend, the smokestack falls on him at one point, and I just had nightmares about that. And yeah, I think I was like 9 years old. So
you were worried somebody was going to draw you.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, geez.
Yeah, I was like, what are they doing in that car when she puts a hand on
what is this? I don't like it.
Anecdote, but my aunt sent me and my cousin to buy snacks. They had a lead on that scene, and they tricked us into buying more snacks.
Oh, clever.
I didn't see it till VHS.
No, it was a big deal for me to go see that with my parents. It was like the first PG-13 movie I was allowed to go see, and there was that, of course, full nudity scene where my mom was like, put her hands over my eyes and stuff. So
I just don't think I had interest. I think we just rented it.
Fair enough. James Cameron's very upset with you.
Yeah, fair.
But this is not. If I was that age too,
podcast.
Already I think it's really effective. It's not jump scare. It's like underneath the surface. Like, there's a tension to this. That
and the
really,
noises that she's making is just like so ominous and spooky.
And
like
just the
human
body
and
moves. Yeah.
And you did shout out that Jacob, it won Best Sound, because of course that's astounding. But real quick, the soundtrack Tubular Bells, which is this album by this guy named Michael Oldman, who Friedkin basically pioneered interesting music being in films. I know that's a dumb thing to say because obviously like The Graduate and Simon and Garfunkel and stuff, but like rock bands. He had Tangerine Dream, a European rock band, score his films. So he was always on the lookout for interesting sounds. He gets this album, Tubular Bells, which is the sound of like John Carpenter's Halloween synthesizer.
I was wondering.
Track. Like, it sets the tone, Jacob, for that sound in horror movies.
John Carpenter was probably inspired by this song.
100%.
I could make that not get sued. Yeah.
Right.
I'll play it kind of offbeat quicker. And you're like, oh, yeah, great.
Very cool.
Yeah, now we have David Gordon Green reusing this, music cue just like in Halloween. So for some reason he's remaking all these legacy horror franchises.
We can't imagine what it's gonna be like.
It's like only in like one scene when the mother's
it's just when she's walking.
It's not featured heavily, but it was in, I guess.
No,
and
osmosis though.
We're about to get it, but let's talk about basically the iconic shot. So we're asking for help here. Father Leland is the person they recommend. He was on the tape anyway. So let's get a senior in here.
Lancaster Mayor.
I keep calling him Leland. Father Lancaster. I was trying to do the first thing. Father Lancaster Marin comes in, and we of course get the shot of him getting out of the car. Now
the famous shot. Yes,
it's almost like a Gregory Crewdson photograph. If you're familiar with the photographer who does the medium format with these incredible plays of like darkness with one light, right? We get this brilliant silhouette of the man,
the smoke
in the frame of the house, the
fog.
smoke. I mean, it's almost like a reverse of the famous Searcher silhouette. Like it's not that he's got so much light and life ahead of him. It's truly that it's like he is facing down evil and darkness. This is, I mean, we talked about famous iconography from this film. This is the poster. This is the shot that is often parodied.
The DVD
this
cover,
is the moment. This is the DVD cover I own. It says the version you've never seen right above this. It's very strange.
An old man getting out of a taxi.
I mean, this is one of the most beautiful images ever set to celluloid, in my opinion. Mike, first time seeing it, you were obviously familiar with it.
I knew what it was, but to see it finally in the cut, you know, I'm like this is something different than just a horror movie. Like, it is cinema. This is cinema. It's wild, and like, it's shots like that, you know, that prove
which is wild, because at the time, again, this was considered like crass exploitation by a lot of people. Like, this is what, you know, slasher grindhouse stuff to us would be. Like, the fact that it did get some praise after it came out and got nominated for stuff, but there's a lot of reaction. Like, serious movie critics and stuff would say, like, this is like the worst picture I've seen in years. Like, this is garbage.
Insane.
Yeah.
And when you listen to Friedkin, and like earlier, the shot of the two priests in the bar where the older priest who's listening to him, who's like the president of the Georgetown priest, has like that silhouette. He's like also in total darkness with that great framing. Like Friedkin's like, well, my interest was, of course, like Monet paintings. I wanted to like recreate, and you're like, this guy is an artist. Like, this is not trash. It is like Hitchcock doing pulpy thrillers, or, you know, like the bottom of the barrel. Like, the artistry that goes into doing this stuff is stupendous.
Yeah, I mean, it's a beautifully shot film. It's, I mean, again, that shot, classic. And it's funny because if you hadn't seen the movie and just saw that shot on the poster and everything, you would think that Father Merrin is like the main character. He's the exorcist.
You think the whole movie
I always
was the exorcist.
Yeah.
I basically thought the whole movie was going to be an exorcism.
Yes.
I'm glad that it wasn't, because it surprised me.
But it's different than what you would expect just through cultural osmosis and stuff.
Absolutely.
Even though I've seen
in a billion other movies in the, you know, years since.
Yeah. You know, you shared the Scary Movie parody. You know, I'd seen all that before I'd ever seen this, and I have, again, my Easter egg at the end of the episode. Stay tuned, Normies, for my favorite reference to The Exorcist.
I love it, Mike.
Yeah,
but this is it. We get what now is the exorcism of the film.
Father last half hour,
Merrin comes in.
He
gets kind of caught up
now, and we're just these are our guys.
This is when it gets really wild, and I think this last half hour is incredible. I mean,
it's
effects,
paced so well.
Yeah, the acting with Max von Sydow, Jason Miller, just like killing it, and like the demon taunting Father Karras about his mother, and he just finally like breaks down, like, "You're not my mother," like just losing it, and then of course sacrificing himself at the end. Yeah, the pea soup.
Yeah.
As a young man, I would get so, and we'll talk about the pea soup in a second. I would get so upset anytime you watch the other priest, quote unquote, react, because this is a trope that, of course, will be carried over in every possession film going forward. Now, when I'm watching it, I'm always like, yeah, fuck you, Pazuzu. Like, I would immediately give it and be like, "You're not my mom, you stupid fucking idiot." I'd start cursing him out immediately.
But then it's the crisis of faith where he's like, I think she's in heaven, but I you know, when it's so effective with Karras and where he's at in his arc,
it preys on your.
It only works in this movie.
Well, we get the incredible setup. The first words Max von Sydow says when he walks through
"It will deceive
everything."
You.
It is a deceiver. Everything it says is lies, but it will use the truth to play on its lies. And you're like, oh, fucking shit! God damn!
So you really have to have a strong. You have to have a strong sense of faith, a strong kind of moral character to stand up to this thing and not be tricked or, you know,
swayed or discouraged from your faith. Drawn astray from the flock, as it were, you know?
Yeah.
And that's like when it really hits you how serious this thing is. And like, again, I don't know when we're going to get to the pea soup, but like when you see these kind of things and he's trying to go through and do the exorcism and he just has to kind of let it roll off his shoulder. He just kind of takes his glasses off and just continues, like he's trying to not let it get to him. Like, it's like, this is incredible what's happening right now.
Don't react. It's kind of a metaphor for having a little kid.
Oh,
it's
man.
Like, don't get worked up. Just, you know, don't.
Right.
Just
you know what? I'm going to try to egg you on.
It's a parenting metaphor.
It really is.
Right.
It is it's like a naughty child that has to be disciplined. Like,
nope, we're going to bed. It's actually bedtime. Well, your mom sucks cocks it out. No, I am your mom.
And we don't say that in this house.
Yes, you're done.
like we mentioned, the masturbation with the crucifix scene,
Mhm.
very shocking. The head spinning around scene,
Oh my
which
god.
Right.
at the time was like a very sophisticated thing with a whole model they built of Reagan, uh, in a sitting up position, the head spins around. I mean, that had to be incredible to see for the
Yeah.
first time when that movie
Spider
came
Walk
out.
Yes.
too. We've said it a couple times, but
Yeah.
cannot be understated. This shit's crazy. And just the shit
Um,
flying around the room. Everything in this movie is practical.
yeah, the bed
Yes.
lifting up. I mean,
Now, in this essence, we get the
Yeah.
freezer as well. Now, right? They're doing this effect where they use 4 air conditioners just pumping cold air into the
Yes.
tiny room they're shooting in
yes.
order to just get all the visible breath on screen.
And by the way, part of the curse of this movie is that I believe Linda Blair did have ongoing health problems due to shooting in this cold environment in just a nightgown for so long. So
Yeah, I believe,
Oh,
she was only
jeez.
given long underwear and a nightgown. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
Friedkin had on like a full ski suit and parka on top.
He's got
of
that NFL
so-
jacket that goes over your
Yeah,
pads
Jesus,
on top
Right.
of
you
it.
motherfucker.
yeah,
Oh,
Firing
jeez.
a gun. Can you imagine? You just sitting there like, I just hope he doesn't hit me today.
He just
Yeah.
grabs
Like,
one window
"Oh,
and keeps his hand out
Jesus."
at random intervals,
Yeah.
fires.
Yeah. I'd be like,
But the
"Oh,
cold
stop."
effect, yeah, that when I saw that happening, I'm like, this thing is incredible. This movie is, it's so rated. It might not be to modern audiences the scary horror movie ever, but man, these
No.
effects, again, the pacing, I was so in on this final.
Yeah.
kind of
Well, I
third
do
here
want to talk
especially.
about, is this a scary movie to you? Because I
Right.
don't think, is it a scary movie compared to modern horror movies? Maybe it's not the scariest movie in the world, but it's just such a good movie that it doesn't even matter. Like, it's creepy, it's ominous, and there's some really shocking scenes. I wouldn't say it's like jump out of your seat scary most of the time.
No, and grappling with the content, Jacob, I'm not at a place in my faith or spirituality where I certainly believe in the devil or really even any kind of evil supernatural forces.
Sure.
And we've talked a lot about the pacing, a little slower than kind of modern horror movies as well. But
Yeah.
I would call this a scary film because it certainly challenges norms and makes you hyper aware of bad imagery and things like
Yeah.
that.
I mean,
Yeah,
there's
I'm
some
not
definitely good.
sorry. I'm not a religious person necessarily, so a lot of religious horror like exorcisms, demons, hell, the devil doesn't always do it for me because I just don't believe in that kind of thing, so it's not really scary to me in a fictional sense, but when it's done well, then it can be scary, yeah.
Yeah, and I kind of think, I don't believe in werewolves either, but some of those movies are
Right.
scary. But
don't
I look
believe
at
in
it
no
in
ghosts.
metaphor. The metaphor of
Yeah.
not knowing how to cure your child, the metaphor of a crisis of faith and being
Yeah.
challenged by very real negative things that are pushing
Yeah.
you further down into the dark. Like that
And the
stuff
other-
is scary,
Absolutely. And in recent years we've had this trend of so-called prestige horror, your Hereditaries, your
Vavitch.
Midsommers, your Vavitches, which are all very slower kind of paced, slow burn kind of movies like this. So it's really not a new phenomenon. The prestige horror really goes back to movies like this. So
Yeah,
there's nothing really new under the sun. So what are you
There's
going
still
to
an
do?
audience for it. What do we think of the climax here, though? Because some shit goes
Incredible.
down.
Yeah.
It is again so much quicker than I remember it occurring. Like really when the exorcism started, I was like, okay, buckle in. And then I
Yeah, it's
kind of got
basically
up to
the
use the
last 20
bathroom and I
minutes.
came back and I was like, wait, hold on. Did I miss it?
Yep.
I rewound and I was like, oh, he did. He's already fallen. Shit.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, the really insane stuff is about the last 20 minutes of the film. Obviously, Father Marin comes. They do the exorcism. Karras has to leave the room at one point because he's can't handle it. And then he realizes, like, I know what I need to do. Well, he comes back in. Marin is like dying or something or
He's
dead.
having a heart
because-
attack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like, I know what I need to do. I need to get it. I need to have it pass into me and then sacrifice myself to get this thing out of this young innocent girl.
Yeah.
And that's like his ultimate sacrifice after all the guilt that he's felt over his mother and all this stuff, his crisis of faith. He realizes like this is the one good thing I can do with my life and sacrifice myself for this person. So
But he reaches this breaking point where he's throwing hands,
Yeah.
on this demon girl. Like it's the body of the girl, and he's just punching her in the face.
It's
the
a boxer,
demon.
Mike.
Yeah, he's a boxer, bro. That's a knockout punch. You know, damn, it all does come full circle. But he eventually gets the demon to enter him, and yeah, when he finally, ascends and makes that sacrifice, it was like, man, what a movie. I think it's
the
great.
effects look really cool on him.
Yep, absolutely. Kind of transitions there for a second, little wavering, and then out the window we go.
I love the shot where it's like the demon face superimposed over Linda Blair for like a split second and stuff.
Yes.
Like, really cool stuff there.
Yeah, and just prior to this, there's that scene where Marin and Karis are just sitting on the stairs in silence, like after they kind of first getting into
tired,
it.
Tired, exhausted from what they've been doing.
Yeah, there's just so much like gravity, and I guess there's a conversation there in the longer cut, or
Yeah, that's another scene. I guess they had to cut. I would have liked
they have a
conversation
on
that were in the book.
Sitting in silence.
The studio wanted to cut. Yeah.
I would have.
They're talking about more like why would it choose Reagan to possess and that kind of thing.
And why it's not working specifically. Yeah.
Did they have anything illuminating to say there? Is it just more like fuck if I know?
No, he's just kind of pushing Father Karras to really have more faith.
Oh, fair enough.
So
no, sitting there and having Karras arrive at that on his own works too. I think both cuts are fine. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. I was amazed when this thing wrapped up though.
Exorcist.
Yeah. So the demon goes into him. He jumps out the window, falls down the stairs, dies, gets his last right.
Pervert priest whispers in his ears, "Hey, tell me all the bad stuff you did real quick before you go to heaven." What? Get away from me.
Give me the juice. What do you got?
And then we see a little bit of an epilogue with Reagan being back to normal, and that's kind of the end of the movie, right?
Yeah. They're leaving town. I guess the movie's over, so it's just like, all right.
You really do never see the detective again in your guys' version, huh?
Nope.
No, it's weird. Like I think maybe right at the end, but there's a longer scene where he talks to the other priest, and they form kind of a friendship that would have been a good bookend, I think, for this movie, because we get the scene where the police detective goes and investigates the mother and is like, what's going on here and stuff.
I have an autograph.
Then he kind of just exits the movie, right? So
I do like the asking for an autograph too, though, because she has this, I'm in crisis, but I know that I'm also famous, and I'm trying to be cordial, but like you could tell it's like, this is not professional, policeman.
And he's and that was kind of foreshadowed, because his whole thing is that he likes movies, because when he's talking to Karras, he's like, he said, we can go see a movie together.
Does he say at some point, I always get these tickets and my wife never wants to go. So if you and I just saw a movie or something.
Right.
Oh man. See, that would have made sense. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch a longer cut. Or at least the scenes that I missed. I think that would definitely be a worthwhile experience.
No, I definitely
goes to a movie with the other priest at the end.
Yeah.
That's right. That's that scene. They go to a movie.
Weird.
So it is what it is, but that's the movie.
Maybe we exercise our final thoughts on the other side of this. Let me jump out this window, and we'll see over there.
Back.
Oh, jeez.
We're back here on Normies Like Us. We're talking to The Exorcist. We're wrapping it up. We're going to give our final thoughts while we're doing our first Spooktober episode of 2023.
Spooky.
The season we love. We're going to have a ton of spooky content for you this season. We got a bunch of good episodes. I'm really
5 weeks in October this year, so 5 Spooktober episodes.
And I think you've promised to watch every other piece of Exorcist content, Jacob. I think that's
I don't know about
putting it out on air right now to say everything Exorcist related.
Yeah,
you're gonna Hellraiser. You can make it through Exorcist.
We'll see.
Right?
Yeah, we'll see how far I get. There's not too many sequels, so it's more doable. But I could briefly mention that I did watch The Exorcist 2, The
also
Heretic,
on Max, right?
After this.
The Heretic.
Okay.
Now this movie, 1977, 4 years after, directed by John Borman, kind of a hit or miss director who, in the mid 70s,
hit.
going kind of wild with it.
Experimental
Zardoz,
director.
Yes. Interesting guy, but had some really interesting ideas about this movie. But it is a wild movie, and it's really about that whole metaphysical connection between science and spiritual faith, where you have this priest character played by Richard Burton, who's an exorcist specialist kind of guy like Father Merrin. Then you have a psychiatrist who's a very scientific base. So basically the Father Karras split into two characters in this. Ellen Burstyn is not coming back in this one, but Linda Blair does as a 16-year-old teen now who is kind of being looked at by this psychiatrist and this priest because turns out they didn't fully get the demon out of her, Pazuzu, so she's still got some remnants of Pazuzu inside of her. There's this whole they have to hypnotize her to figure out what's going on. And it goes into
hypnotherapy was cutting edge at the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. There's a lot of flashbacks starring Max von Sydow as a young Father Merrin, the origins of Pazuzu. James Earl Jones is in it. He's like the first person possessed by Pazuzu in Africa. So it goes all into that backstory.
Don't like the sound of it. I've seen this. I don't remember any
this
of it.
Is Jacob so much Hellraiser 3, by the way. Just do the origin with a younger guy who found a bad thing. Anyway.
But the weird thing about this is that it basically says that Reagan was chosen by Pazuzu because it focuses on people that have like this spiritual psychic ability to fight evil.
Shine.
Yes, the Shine. Basically, she at one point talks to this autistic girl who's nonverbal and gets her to speak using kind of her psychic powers and stuff. So it's like Pazuzu targets these people like James Earl Jones as well, specifically because they have this special ability. It's all insane, but it's an interesting movie. Yeah.
Interesting. Pazuzu versus Jack Torrance.
So that was 1977. Then in 1990, they made Exorcist 3, which was written and directed by William Blatty, who obviously was the original author of the book and wrote the screenplay of this movie. So he wrote and directed this one based on his sequel novel called Legion, which is a sequel to the Exorcist novel. And this
Has a novelist ever directed one of their books before?
I don't know. That's a good
question. Very
in general.
Just in general.
Michael Crichton did Westworld, but I don't think that was.
True.
Oh, true. No, that's Mike. That's Michael Crichton was a director. That is totally of the same weird caliber that William Blatty was. That's a great
go. One author that I read.
Right.
Coma. He also did the TV movie Coma, based on one of his books.
The Andromeda Strain is a good slow burn, but he didn't direct it. Anyway, yeah.
I think he maybe wrote it though.
Oh yeah, he wrote it.
The screenplay.
And the book.
But Exorcist 3, starring George C. Scott. Also, Jason Miller comes back for this one somehow. I thought, Damien Karras died, but apparently comes back. I haven't seen this one yet, so I'm excited to check that out. And then I just wanted to mention also, in 2004, there was a prequel made, but there was actually two versions of this movie made. They wanted to make a prequel. John Frankenheimer, another old director from the 60s and 70s, was going to direct it. Had a lot of health issues and ended up dying like a month later, so he had to pull out. Paul Schrader signed on. Yeah, Paul Schrader, who is mainly a screenwriter, sometimes director, worked with Scorsese a lot, made this movie called Dominion, prequel to The Exorcist. He made this cut starring Stellan Skarsgård as Father Merrin. The studio hated
his
it.
First dig or something?
Yeah, I think so. It's a prequel, so he's playing a younger version of the character in 2004. So I guess they're like, let's get another Swedish guy to play Max von Sydow. Let's get Stellan Skarsgård.
We alluded to the mystery behind the Merrin character. Like, is he Indiana Jones and a priest? Like, there is something there. I don't know if I would want to see it, but there's something more.
And you see some of that in Exorcist 2 as well, where von Sydow comes back in only the flashbacks to play a younger version of the character
with no makeup or less makeup.
And this movie, so he made it in 2004. The studio hated the cut that Paul Schrader made. It was too slow, too weird. They didn't like it, so they hired another director, Rennie Harlan, to recut it, reshoot a bunch of stuff. Yes.
Nice.
And they released that, and that was called Exorcist: The Beginning in 2004, and then Paul Schrader still released his cut in 2005. So there's basically two versions of a prequel starring Stellan Skarsgård with some similar scenes. But they cut it into a much more conventional horror. And that was the last one before David Gordon Green with these two new ones,
All right,
Exorcist
so
Believer and Exorcist Deceiver.
Coming out the weekend.
Before we give our
release of
final
this.
thoughts,
Yeah.
let's say, yes, it's coming out the weekend this releases. They fluctuate some time around, so we had to shift when we were doing this, so we're not covering it when we're covering this Exorcist content.
No, we have not seen it. It comes out in 3 days from when you're listening to this, Normies.
Yes.
So,
But if you watch
Spooktacular, we'll talk it.
Watch this.
Yeah, if you do, please. But opinion, guys, I've seen the trailer. I'm sure you guys have as well. Are you excited for Exorcist Believer? And then, of course, there will be a follow-up sequel.
Yes.
Already announced.
Look, I've kind of made clear how I felt about these, David Gordon Green's Halloween trilogy. Mixed bag for me. This trailer I don't know. It doesn't look great to me.
I can't remember from our coverage, you ended up not liking any of David Gordon Green's, right? His whole trilogy.
The first
not
movie
really a big fan.
Wasn't terrible. It's really, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I liked Halloween. What's the first one called? Just
Halloween Kills, Halloween Ends.
Correct. Yeah. I want to. Oh wait, what happened in Halloween Kills? I can't even.
Kills is like the action.
Evil
movie.
dies
That's
tonight.
Evil on the run. Evil
dies tonight.
Evil dies tonight.
People Michael Myers fist fights 8 people in a circle, and
he murders like 15 firefighters.
Yes.
That's
the one where they trap him in the house. Yeah,
it has the highest body count in any Halloween movie.
I think I liked the first one. Okay,
Mike likes Ends, which
Halloween Ends. I did not like. Do not like Corey Cunningham. Get the fuck out of here.
But you're
not Michael Myers.
I mean, Jacob, you're famously, a fan of the critically acclaimed Rob Zombie one, so
Of course. Well, I prefer him to David Gordon Green. I mean, I just think David Gordon Green, interesting career. I mean, he went from indie dramas to stoner comedies to making sequels to famous horror movies for some reason. Just a really wild, all over the place kind of career.
Just cashing checks on HBO Danny McBride shows.
Yeah, well, he loves working with Danny McBride, and some of those shows, Eastbound and Down, what's the Preachers one?
Righteous Gemstones. I watch them all.
Yeah, they're fun. He's got in Danny McBride did co-write some of those Halloween movies, I'm pretty sure as well.
I think all 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So interesting guy, but not a huge fan of his Halloweens. We'll have to see about Exorcist Believer.
The trailers do not get me excited. Have you even seen one, Mike?
So I saw the trailers a month or so ago for something else.
The Body and the Blood.
Body in the Blood. I had never seen this. Original movie.
So you had no frame of reference.
No, but I heard Tubular Bells, and I'm like, oh, okay, shit flying around, people getting possessed. I'm like, okay, we have 2 victims now. We're in a hospital. So now that I've seen this, I'm like, okay, we are repeating some similar beats of like there's a hospital.
It's just, and it's just repeating the formula of his Halloweens, where it's like, we'll get that iconic song in there again. We'll have the Jamie Lee Curtis, aka Ellen Burstyn, come back as the old lady who's experienced this before, and it's just like
why?
Well, hold on, but Jacob, modern audiences, they're not going to be scared of a possessed little girl, but they'll be scared of two possessed little girls.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I'll probably watch this. We'll watch this and talk it on the Spooktacular at the end of it, which is, I believe, coming out on Halloween. Halloween Day.
Awesome.
So look forward to that based on our record schedule. Yeah, Halloween Day that drops. So it's called Exorcist Believer. I'll check it out. We'll see. Thanks to the Alamo Pass, it'll cost me $1. But the second one's called Deceiver. I don't like
Believer and Deceiver.
Yeah, I don't like that. That's
why would you possibly need
Jacob?
2 movies anyways? Like,
who knows?
If the first one could have been done in one
said
movie.
It's the biggest gamble that Blumhouse has ever taken, because they really pulled out a lot of capital to buy the rights to continue on this saga in a way that they didn't have to before. Like with Halloween, they have more of an agreement to profit share. This is them trying to take more profit but paying more in for the property. And they moved because of the Taylor Swift film. It doesn't seem like a lot of people are going to theaters right now. I don't think it's set up to earn a lot of money at all, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I don't know if it has the same kind of cultural impact of Halloween, where it's like people, there's been so many Halloween sequels. People love to go see Michael Myers stab some people. I don't know if
Yeah.
The Exorcist has the same pull or an Exorcist sequel will have the same
You
pull.
have to play off the legacy of the original. Like even bad Friday the 13th, people kind of enjoy, or you know what I mean? But you don't have that.
Yeah.
I don't think many people are enjoying these, but I haven't seen them, so I don't speak for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, there's been less sequels than like some of these slasher franchises. There's only been really 3, 77, 90, and 2004/2005. So not like once every decade or so, really.
When one of your films is 2 films, that happened for Halloween too. Remember the 6, and then it was like the 6 the producers cut.
Oh sure,
whatever.
Paul Rudd.
Hell yeah,
yeah.
With a metal pipe. It worked for Khan. It works on Michael Myers. If you have a superhuman, metal pipe. Okay.
That's right.
That's right, Mike.
But when you're dealing with a demon, there's some different approaches. Generally, it's the power of Christ. But I want to talk to you about my favorite reference to The Exorcist ever. Okay.
Please.
So I grew up watching, if you have Disney, now you have access to this, but the Dinosaurs TV show, you know, Jim Henson and crew.
Oh, sure. Your favorite.
Season 4, episode 6, Terrible Twos is the title of that episode. And that entire episode is a parody of The Exorcist. Like we said, it's like having a child. We're taking care of a child. He won't go to bed. And there's a scene when the priest, you know, equals come in and they're trying to get him to eat his dinner. And they're like, the power of rice compels you. And I will never forget that scene. Like the power of rice compels you. And anyway, check out that episode if you want a really weird version.
It's like there's like a little dinosaur that gets possessed by a demon. Is that what you're telling me?
Baby Sinclair, he just has in his terrible twos, and they have to survive until his 3rd birthday at midnight, and then he'll be a normal baby.
He spits up on them.
He does. Yeah, it's great.
Wow.
Shit's flying around his room, but the power of rice is what compelled them. So anyway.
It was done pretty recently. Jonah Hill gets possessed, and that This Is the End. Do you remember that?
That's right.
They play the Tubular Bells score. They do the whole sequence, the pea soup, right?
Yeah.
Danny McBride also in that movie.
Yeah.
There you go. That's the connection.
That's where he got the. He said, "David, we got to buy this." Jacob, you said up top, the thing that probably I saw way before I saw this was the Scary Movie 2 parody starring James Woods, who it does suck to say, I think is a brilliant actor, and he is very good in this. Rotten hell, I think you're a piece of shit. I've maybe said it to you guys before. I hate blue humor, like shit and farts and stuff like that, but was raised by 2 people, my brother and my father, who think it is the greatest thing on the planet. And the only times I was really worried that my father was truly going to die was when I thought he was going to have a heart attack watching this scene in Scary Movie 2, where James Woods pretends to bless the house and instead takes a huge shit.
Yeah. Really gross.
Like my brother and my father love that scene so goddamn much. It makes me laugh, like thinking I love it because they love it so much. But it's always had The Exorcist in my bones more than even maybe the movie.
Right. I definitely saw that scene before I ever saw
way before
The Exorcist. And Scary Movie, it's interesting because like the first couple are pretty funny and like good parody movies.
The Marlon Wayans ones
the Wayans
are
brothers.
great. The 1 and 2 I think are great.
And you sent those scenes and I was watching, I was like, this is so like they legit like did the whole like ending of the movie.
Andy Richter plays
Andy
the
Richter
goofy
as
priest
Father Karras
playing, but he plays also the goofy priest playing the piano. They do a funny rap. She comes down and pees for too long. They are picking the moments in the film where I'm like, yes, that is what you should be parodying. This is great.
Right.
Yeah, I will say, it was really gross. Like some of the stuff.
It is. It's so.
I was like, this is disgusting. Like I hate this, but it's also funny.
I hate it.
I did rewatch the Red Letter Media review of this just because what do they think? What do some guys in Wisconsin think? You know, I check out their stuff, but they talked about Repossessed with Leslie Nielsen. Never saw it. But there's this pea soup thing, and then he does it back to her. He's like, "How do you like it?" I'm like, "That's very good."
And Mike, am I wrong? Is Linda Blair the lead of that film?
It's
is
got
it
Linda
her
Blair
and Leslie Nielsen?
Yep. And Ned
the whole movie is just a parody of The Exorcist. She's literally Jacob.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
She's not a good actress. What a life
doing it again.
Yeah.
It's our favorite poker face in Scary Movie 2, right? What's her name?
Natasha Lyonne. Yeah.
Natasha Lyonne
Shout
as the Linda Blair character.
Yeah, incredible. A young
back in the day.
Natasha Lyonne. Yeah.
But I was a cheerleader. Yeah.
Yeah.
She was in that.
I know.
Yep.
But I'm a cheerleader. Great
Well,
movie.
Exorcist classic. What are we
Oh,
thinking?
yes.
Final thoughts,
Oh,
you know?
great. Yeah, again, I picked this one mainly because of Friedkin. R.I.P. God bless the guy. All the stuff we said about him not influencing my opinion on him. It should, obviously, again, but I just think he was such an interesting artist. Now, I said the Born Again, Jesus Christ, Jew for Jesus stuff. He was a guy who kind of had no faith during the making of this movie, but found faith so later in life. He, of course, made a documentary about exorcisms starring the most famous exorcist of all time. And that man would go on to be the basis of the film released this year, The Pope's Exorcist, starring Russell Crowe, who plays that character.
Insane.
I recommend to watch that movie.
Yes.
I don't love a lot of Exorcist films, but shout out to listener Manette and I believe Matt as well. Both recommended this film to me, and I've recommended it to multiple people since I've watched it who have said, Colin, that was a great recommendation. I adore that film.
Is this a documentary or the Pope's Exorcist?
The Pope's Exorcist.
This is The Pope's Exorcist.
Starring Russell Crowe.
Yeah.
This has been on my radar ever since I saw those pics of Russell Crowe zooming around Italy on a little scooter, wearing his his like
he's so big
father's outfit and just with a beard and everything, looking great. Just having the time of his life.
It is, and I mean, it's almost a parody of this film. He's the old priest. There's a young priest. They got to do all the same stuff. It's a child that's possessed, but it really doesn't go the way you think it would. It's not tropey. It's not stereotypical, in my opinion. I really enjoyed it, listeners. I think you will too.
Shout out if that's on a streaming service or what.
I believe it's on Netflix right now.
Netflix. That's been on my radar for a while, so I need to watch that. In spooky season, great time for that.
Netflix
so I'm going to be
doing.
I'm going to be trying to do 31 days of Spooktober or whatever it is, and
Halloween.
We'll see how
31
many
days of Halloween for Spooktober.
That's right. Did it last year. Well, hopefully I can do it this year and watch 31 movies in 31 days. I guess a hint for next week. Maybe we'll be covering a specific day of the week.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it could be.
Wednesday. Oh, wait, never mind.
That's right.
Yeah,
Wednesday Addams.
This year,
our favorite show. Yeah.
Spooky Wednesday, yeah. But yeah, I do enjoy how we're kind of going, like last year, I think we did Texas Chainsaw 77. That's like one of my favorite things. We're kind of stepping back, who knows? Maybe it'll be a look at Psycho next year or something, but we are kind of uncovering kind of the origins of these trends that would emerge in horror by looking at some of the progenitors and originators of like that genre, that stuff, and as far as exorcisms go, this is definitely the best one I've ever seen. I remember liking The Exorcism of Emily Rose, but I've only seen it once, so I'm not sure if it holds up.
Yeah.
But it does like is it medical, is it supernatural bit in that too.
It definitely does,
Previously in my life, generally I feel like exorcism movies fall into the same category for me as like haunted house type movies where the house is possessed. And a lot of those movies, I just they don't do it for me a lot of the time.
Like
so
all the Amity spin-offs. It's like, whoa, guys,
Amity horror.
Chill.
Yeah.
There's only one good
they're all based on a true story, right?
Yeah.
Exorcism of Emily Rose, I know what that is. I've never seen it. A lot of these
Scott Derrickson, director of Doctor Strange.
And and a bad Hellraiser sequel. So
yes, that's right.
But I'm excited for Spooktober. I'm excited to watch some spooky movies with you guys, and I'm here for it.
Mike is making me think,
right?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah,
but
easy.
Mike, as you say, you're making me think we should do The Shining next year to keep doing like the best picture horror movies as we knocked these out.
That's a great idea.
And I have a great story I can tell regarding The Shining because I visited the not the location it was shot on, but the hotel that inspired Stephen King to write the novel.
What's the name
Colorado.
Of that? Hotel?
When the movie is called The Overlook Hotel, I'm forgetting what the name of the actual place is. It's in Colorado. I visited there.
Well,
I took
and
a tour.
Jacob, they hired you to work there over
Colorado,
the winter
Stanley
to keep the
Hotel.
boiler burning, right? Isn't that
That's
right?
right. Yes, I've been typing on my typewriter. Things seem to be going fine.
All Jacobs are good boys. I don't
Yeah.
think that's what he's supposed to be writing. But
My favorite remake of The Shining was Zach Bagans going to the Stanley Hotel in Ghost Adventures and getting haunted.
The Stanley Hotel, is that's what it is?
I
right?
have
That's what it
not
is. I
watched
just looked
that
it up.
one.
Yeah.
Of course they go.
So
Has Zach
Are you
Bagans
here?
ever
I'll
gone
punch
to
you.
Georgetown? He needs to go to the steps.
Yeah, yeah. Watch where you.
and
watch
I
your
did
step.
take like the
Pazuzu,
haunted tour.
Are you here?
I'll fight you. I'll
Where they
fight
took
you.
us into the
Leave
basement.
Reagan alone.
Are you?
I did do-
Sorry.
I did do the haunted tour there, and they took us into the basement. They were like, "This is where like the little ghost children are." Blah blah blah. And it was very scary. So if we do
Wow.
Shining next year, maybe I'll talk about that.
We
would
should
love to
do
hear
that.
that
We
story.
should put that on the books.
That's a
fun.
great
Yeah.
call. Yep. But yeah, we'll be going through it. I love this as a first time viewer. Thanks, Colin, for recommending it. Very, very good stuff.
Yeah, I'll just say we've
Happy
got some
Spooktober.
Happy Spooktober. We've got some classic franchises, I'll say, coming up. So take a
Mhm.
guess what that could mean. And we'll see you next week, right, Normies?
Yeah, we might even be going international. Who knows? But
Yeah.
stay tuned
That's
to find
right.
out.
We've got all your favorites here, and of course our guest host. What's his name? Mr. Bojangles has been with us the whole time. What's his name?
Captain
Yeah.
Howdy?
Captain
Captain
Howdy.
Now, Mr.
Captain Kangaroo,
Bojangles
yeah.
was close. Admit it.
Yeah.
Captain Howdy's here too. Listeners, he wishes you all a good night, and he says that your mother suck cocks in hell.
Yeah. He said, I'll be seeing you in your dreams and other
That's
ominous
right.
things like that. So
Mhm.
good luck going to sleep tonight,
Mama.
Normies.
Mama, no, it's a me.
Dimmy.
Deemy.
Dimmy, my
Dimmy.
son.
Dimmy, your boy.
Yeah.
We didn't
Alright.
talk about that like sleazy uncle who's like, hey, I don't know, you're like a bad son because you're like a priest. You ain't got no money.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
That's great.
Great.
That's great.
Yeah. That's great.
Anyways,
Great
thank you so
movie.
much, Normies.
Yes, a classic.
Please check us out. Write in if you are in Georgetown right now fighting off Pazuzu. We would love to hear from it. You can reach us at normies_like_us, where you could rate, review, subscribe to the podcast, follow along all Spooktober long for the spookiest content ever. I think we did like 5 episodes this month, right?
Absolutely.
That's right.
I know,
5
shouted it out.
episodes. 5
And Mike
weeks.
said our final one comes out on Halloween. Like
Wow.
if you're listening to
All
spooky
Hallows
stuff
Eve.
all month, All Hallows Eve, you will get a
Sam Wayne.
spooktacular by the Normies.
Mhm. Absolutely. And that won't happen for another 7 odd years. I don't know with leap year
Right.
how
Name-
it works, but
Name all the devils we worship on this podcast,
Yes.
Jacob. Pazuzu,
Pazuzu.
Sam Wayne.
Sam.
Yeah.
What's the Ghostbuster one?
Yeah, what is her name? Zoltar? Is
Yeah, I thought that was
Zool, right?
Zool.
Zool, thank you.
Zool,
Zool.
yeah. And that
Zool.
painting guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also,
we
We
Normies,
love
lot.
them all.
like I said,
Diablo.
October 6th, not only check out the new Exorcist, check out the Kane Mutiny Court Martial. Not a
Yeah.
spooky movie, a courtroom drama, but pour one out for the late great Billy
Hey,
we'll
Friedkin.
probably
Oh, yeah.
not watch it in October, but I'll get around to it.
Yeah,
there.
it's on Paramount Plus, I believe. So
Yeah,
check that
I'm
out.
excited. I have
Yeah.
not liked a lot of his last films. Have you guys ever seen Killer
His later
Joe with
ones,
Matthew
Killer
McConaughey?
Joe, Matthew McConaughey. He
That's
made
a
movie
Tracy
called Bug.
Letts screenplay. Screenwriter
Right.
Tracy. Bug is as well. He just
Yeah.
loves these playwrights. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
We really got to just take
I don't
this to movie trivia night and we'll start making some real money. I think with
That's
our
right.
brains combined, man.
Here we
We-
go.
I
There
love to
we
talk
go.
movies. Love to talk movies with you boys. So
Absolutely.
happy Spooktober.
Especially
and happy-
1973 classics like The Exorcist by William Friedkin. As we said, R.I.P. to him. Thanks, Normies, for following along. Check out our YouTube page where you can watch these. And that's it. We've been your hosts. This is your Mother Sucks Collins in Hell.
Mike Zuzu again.
And this is The Power of Cobb Compels You. Thanks,
Like, share, and
Normies.
subscribe. Thanks,
Of
Normie.
Cobb compels you.
Compels you. The
The power
of
of
Cobb
Cobb compels you.
compels
you.
Don't stop reading, Jacob. Don't stop reading.
Of Cobb compels
Finish
you.
it.
Come into me.
Bye,
Thanks, Normies.
Bye.